I wanted to find out if it'd be okay to, promote the fact that we use these, highlighted and tabbed as, our favorite marketing tool.
Justin, you with me?
Can you see me okay?
Yes. And Justin, thank you so much for joining us. This has been, wow, trying to put this together with you. You're a busy guy.
I am. It's been a while since we've been able to see each other.
So people who are wondering about what you actually learned, give them a feel for what we covered that week, and whether you learned what you thought you should.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to, Patrick. But maybe before that, just kind of I can touch on when and how we found ABS. You had mentioned in your introduction there just now about doing due diligence. Like you said, there's who do you know, who to trust, how can you tell? We did a pretty significant amount of due diligence, not only on ABS, but just the industry in general, what the opportunity looks like. And I spent about every waking minute of probably a month and a half doing that before I decided to commit and say, okay, let's do this. I have a partner in my business named Daniel DeLeon. And Daniel really gets the credit for exposing the opportunity to me and saying, hey, look, this is something we need to look into. And so we checked out ABS, and when we decided to pull the trigger, we were really enthusiastic about it. We almost didn't make I think we were within the last hour to get into that class that we actually attended. Once we decided, we didn't want to wait a minute longer. We didn't want to have to wait for the following class. So then upon arriving in Dallas, like you said, it was very, very simple, very professional. The nice thing is every day you have questions about, okay, was I right about this decision? Are they who we think they are? Do they have the integrity that I demand personally? What's this going to be about? And yeah, every day in the conference room with all the other licensees that were attending, it was really, really professional. And I think we were lucky we had a great class of other licensees that were with us. They impressed us personally, and it was really a natural fit from the get-go. We just got more excited day by day. Couldn't wait to finish training so we could go back and start growing the business. I'm about 41 years old, and I've had a number of different careers. I get bored feeling pigeonholed with one career, but most of my early adult life was spent in the world of professional tennis coaching. So great job, enjoyed it. That it fulfilled a lot of passions of mine. Got to travel the world, but it was the ultimate example of a job that, even though I did very well for myself, it's the best case of a job where you have to trade your time for money. There's only so many hours in a day and only so much you can charge for your specialty in any industry, really. I realized, this is an opportunity to go invest in a business. The fee of $25,000, it can seem significant to many, or it can seem like a bargain to people like me because I could see what it could turn into. So to me, it was a no-brainer, and it is a lot of money, but it's absolutely worth every penny because we've basically made that back just off of our first client. So going forward, we're a profitable company, which I can't think of too many industries you can get into in under a year's time where you can say that. So that was very exciting, and this is a chance to have something that it's a portable business, meaning I don't have to be in an office 9 to 5. Although we have an office we use, we're in the field visiting with our clients in the offices. But if you have to leave and go somewhere for a week or a month, as long as you have Wi-Fi, you can still run the business transparently to the customer. There's no change in certain level of service, which was great to me because my goal is I want to grow this. My partner wants to grow this to the point where we can employ people and have the business make us money, which gives us back our time. So now we're not trading our time for money. Whether we have a job or not, the business will function and make us money. How much is up to us and how hard we want to work. That's my business partner's certificate. I have mine right here from the training. This one is mine. And
that's ours that we gave to you. You just framed it. I said, yeah.
Yeah.
Good. I'm not going to read that, but folks, it's a certified medical revenue manager that we certify you as. Yeah, through our organization, that Medical Revenue Management Association of America. So, good job. Hey, that's even my signature. You can put that on a check. And,
it's a valuable signature. I might auction it off one day. Every day is a different component. There's a really large volume of information to absorb. You're not going to absorb it all in the 5 days, but you'll be able to take it home and reference back to it. That was probably, Patrick, the thing that impressed Daniel and I the most was the amount of information that's really important. You guys did a phenomenal job and still do a phenomenal job of structuring it in a way where it's easy to understand and able to get it in 5 days. Training for us, we felt like we were on top of the world when we left, and then as soon as we got home and started putting clients into our sales pipeline, we realized how handy it was to reference back and how much we needed to reference back to all the material, but it was so easy. You guys thought way ahead, so we were very pleased, and it made the process of continuing our learning and continuing our education really, really easy. But in that picture you guys are seeing right now, that was one day where we're learning to actually file claims and interact with the systems the way you'll see in training. And they provided laptops and, turned what I think was probably a complicated process into one that was very, very simple. And it really instilled a lot of confidence. There's an enormous amount of material that you'll be given once you are a licensee that gets sent to you in terms of marketing and operational support and ideas about how to structure your business. Can you use sales reps? Everything. No stone is left unturned, but none of it's extraneous. So you're not going to get lost in the information. It's easily absorbed and easy to understand. And really, when you get out and about into the world, into your market, wherever you live, and you want to definitely tap into your sphere of influence that's nearby. Although we have a national reach as licensees, which is amazing. No territories really, really sold me. Because I feel that the services that we're able to offer as licensees are far and away the best there are. Stack us up against any competitor, and we run away with the crown by a mile. But if everybody bought based solely on who had the best features and benefits, every single person would drive the nicest car, everybody would wear the nicest clothes, live in the nicest house, according to their budget. People don't think like that. What they're really, and this took me a while, that people aren't buying your product or your service, they're buying you. They need to trust you, they need to know you. And relationships like that don't come easy. It takes time. But if you have the right intention and you're really trying to keep the doctor, their patients, and their staff as a holistic circle, if you're really trying to educate them and consider yourself an educator or a teacher, I think that's probably the best way to build a relationship. This was huge. Yeah, I was blown away by this. And there's a previous book, actually, if you don't mind, that you had also co-authored, From Cash Crunch to Cash Flow, that as a licensee we were given a healthy number of copies, and as you can see right here, I've gone through and tabbed those pages, and on each of those tabs is a highlighted paragraph or sentence, and basically these function wonderfully as they serve two great purposes. One is it's a great marketing tool. You're giving something to a physician of value. I mean, these books aren't cheap. I think they're, what, Patrick, like $20, $25. Yep. Great information. We said, hey, we think this might help you, Dr. Johnson or Dr. Smith. I know your time's precious, so I've taken the liberty of tabbing and highlighting some of the most important parts. Keep the book. You don't need to give it back to us. My contact information is in here. We feel this is a very valuable thing for every doctor to understand. The tabbing and highlighting allows them to read through the key portions that relate to our services and business in just a couple minutes. And then, of course, they're going to be hooked, and they, oftentimes they say, wow, I read the whole book. We need to talk. How can I improve my practice? This makes a lot of sense. It adds a huge measure of credibility. Because if anything, maybe we get them as a client, maybe we don't, but they'll always remember us as a valued person in the industry, as a certified medical revenue manager who was able to educate them, this much or maybe this much. We're helping the industry. It's a great service, and it like I said, it basically functions as a brochure and the best brochure and business card you could ever hand to a total stranger when you're in terms of trying to develop a new relationship. That's how good the book is. Both of them, really. And what a very inexpensive way to invest in your business. Because as you mentioned, going back to the broader question, Patrick, of you're a licensee, you have a company established, and you're going to go out and about, whether you want to be a small business and just have a few medical providers or practices that you want to do services for. That in itself is an amazing annual income. It comes down to, well, I'm not a great salesperson, or I don't know that many doctors. Many of those things are addressed in the training. Pretty much, as I said before, no stone is left unturned. Our trainer was Cynthia, and she's an experienced licensee herself, and did a wonderful job training us. The return on the investment is pretty huge, because you're going to get a call back about the book. It's something of demonstrable value, and it's just I'm thrilled with the fact that we have those. So it makes our lives a lot easier.
All right, so let me ask you, Justin, give us a feel, just kind of an overview now. We've already said that you have the one client that you signed up. Give us a little more details about the client and how you found that first client.
Right. Our first client was knowing what we know now versus when we left training. We're pretty confident that this first client of ours was probably the toughest client we're ever going to face. And a great client to have. Not only are we making good money, but they're making exponentially more, which is the most important. We're supporting them and the community that they serve. So, the first client has a very unique practice. He's an MD, but he also has a more naturopathic side and a large non-insurance related cash pay side of his business. And he's a great value to the community. So we wanted to do everything we could to help him. But once we were able to get him on board, implementation was a very new thing for us, because although it's covered in pretty great detail in training, there's many things that you're going to have to learn on the fly. But again, you just default back to all your training material. So, we never felt like we were a fish out of water whatsoever. It's been pretty much a breeze. The toughest thing I will say is you need to stay on the practice and appoint the practice champion, which is a term you'll be familiar with after training, which is your main point of contact during implementation of the services. And just basically staying on top of them to get us the necessary information we need to create them in their new system is really the most challenging part, which is great news because it's not that hard. Or we can go find some professionals out there who already have those relationships and strike a deal with them. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to have enough cash in the bank to hire them as a full-time employee and pay them benefits, et cetera, et cetera. We did a simple contract agreement. I'd rather have one good rep than 5 that don't do anything. So that's how we got our first deal. This is going to sound a little weird, but the less you say initially, the better. All we really need to try and do is identify, is this practice in pain? Is there anything that's keeping them up at night? Are they happy with their services? Doctors trust other doctors, and they will refer a lot of people. And you can maybe build in an incentive for that if you'd like to. Or just, if they're happy, they're going to tell other doctors. They tend to just do what the rest of the flock does. But essentially, with that sales rep, you come to the point where you go, okay, I can spend so much time doing this, or we can, basically pay them for the introduction, as you said, Patrick, and then we'll take care of it to the next point. The national average on a rejection rate for an insurance claim is around 30. It's above 30%, like maybe 34%. And we can guarantee around a 2% rejection rate. And they say, how? That's crazy. It seems like this ridiculous claim. You're a snake oil salesman. And we say, great. That's what the demo's for. If you want to know how, please, allot 45 minutes to maybe an hour of your staff's time and the doctor's time for a demonstration to show you exactly how that's possible. Yeah, and the demo sells itself. The demo team is absolutely phenomenal. This is all they do all day. And you don't have to be as smart as them. Again, know your role. You're the business owner. You know the thrust of the business, but you have a staff now that's built in as a third party to help you get the client closed and onboarded, and then do the implementation, and then successfully run them. Like any new industry, you get smarter every day, every week, every month, every year. The same is true here, but it's really, really inspiring to know that the day you leave training, as a bona fide licensee with ready for action, that you have a staff built in that's already done this before. You don't have to know how to do all of that. You will learn it over time, but you don't have to know that to get your first client at all.
Justin, we're at the point now where we're closing about 70% of all of the demos that we give. 70% of the doctors move forward with the licensees and get involved with us in some respect with one of our many services that I had on the screen a while ago. And I want to emphasize, folks, that this is our staff. This is ABS. Part of your license fee is to have us do these at no additional cost, by the way, as many as you need, as often as you need. You log on our online system, set it up with us, and boom, we're there. The doctor's there, you're there. We're all watching, and we answer all the questions, during that demo, don't we, Justin?
Yeah, that's correct. You're online, actively with the demo, but basically beyond introductions and a brief background about this potential client, you can which is done ahead of time via email, so the demonstration team knows, what is the specialty, what are their pain points, what would they like us to focus on. They're in the loop, so we don't have to re-explain themselves, or the clients don't have to re-explain why they want to do the demo. So it's very efficient, and at the end of it, then we can, go to the next step, which is, hey, we'd like to discuss a proposal and which services you'd like and the cost. And again, all of that is covered in great detail, thank goodness, and training, so that when you're doing it, you are already an expert on it, to get them onboarded and ready to have your business functioning with real revenue.
We give you the template for the proposal. You take out the things you don't like and you edit it as just a Word document. And then when you print it out and put it in the nice presentation folder and with some of our flyers, and you go back to the doctor, you look very professional, don't you? You don't look like somebody just working, out of your garage, so to speak.
Right. And to be perfectly honest, Patrick, I thought, well, I'm sure the proposal's good. They've used it a lot, but I have a more discerning eye for legal contracts, and I know a bunch of lawyers and have a bunch of attorneys, so I'm sure I'll probably have to change things in this. And frankly, we really haven't ever had to do that. The contract as is really fantastic. It's well thought out, and I felt kind of stupid for questioning it, but doesn't mean you'll never need to make some slight modification to it on the terms of your. Every practice is different, but yeah, you absolutely out of the gates you're ready to go. Right. It was already an existing client of his from his industry, which was completely separate from what we do. Yeah. And he said, look, we know each other well. I know you practice well enough to know that, you guys might want to sit down and talk to a dear friend of mine and listen to what he has to say. So we took him to lunch. And my entire goal for the lunch was get them to a demo because of just what you said. I think when we were there, it was about a 50% close rate on the demos. Now, if you say it's 70%, that's even more amazing. And we actually wound up, as I mentioned, this was a really very thorough client, very smart, unusual for most medical practices. They had a CEO. They have, attorneys that wanted to be involved. They're thinking big term, long term, bigger picture in the future. So they weren't your average bear. But again, I guess this goes back to ABS. I'd really be surprised if we came across a more difficult client, a more challenging sales process with a client than our first group. But once we got it,
everybody says that, Justin.
Yeah, but truly,
the first one is the hardest. Let's face it, that is the hardest.
We felt badly because we had to do 3 demos, but again, the demo team said, no problem, that happens, we can get a group closed in 1 demo, but 2 or 3 is not unheard of. So it did. It just and also it's kind of like herding cats. It depends on the practice, the specialty, the days they're open. Do they have multiple locations? In this case, the physician also works on call at a hospital way across town. So the demos brought us to the contract, and we negotiated the contract, and it was done. And again, as our role is independent, certified medical revenue managers, our goal should be let's keep independent practices independent. Doesn't mean it has to be one physician, but let's not let them get gobbled up by a 100-doctor group or a hospital, because that's not really good for anybody. But again, I'll just reference some of the marketing materials like this book. No better way to get an introduction than to give them a really nice book that is very pertinent to what they're doing and gives them advice and lets them know, hey, this is who we are, this is what we do. If you're interested, let's do a demo. And beyond there, you're
positions you as much larger than somebody that's just started the business on their own. They don't have that tool, so they don't have the credibility of being associated with a doctor like Dr. Vicki Ragnar and me, the chairman of the Medical Revenue Management Association of America. So these are the types of things that being a part of our network gives people credibility they wouldn't have otherwise.
Right, and to go back to the gentleman's question just now, it's really difficult to start any business. Make no mistake. Nobody's going to tell you anything otherwise. No matter how hard it is or how much time you have to put in, when you've got your first 1, 2, 3 clients, it then can be a job or a company where you're giving maybe 2 or 3 hours a day of your time. If you, like my partner and I, have grander visions for the business and want to grow it to something really large with 100 clients or 1,000 clients, whatever, that's great. Then you can hire people to do that. My goal is to put in as much blood, sweat, time, and money into this as I can, because I know, and we've been proven right now that we're up and running with our client, that it's worth it, because then I don't have to have a job the rest of my life. I have the company running it for me. I can hire people to do that for me, and I can, enjoy time with my family, work on the business, not in the business. But again, Patrick's right. It's entirely up to you, and our reach is national, so you're not pigeonholed to your town, your city, or your state. Reach out, go with your sphere of influences. When you really sit down and think about the people it starts to happen. In a day or two, you realize how many people that can refer you. Oh, my cousin's a doctor. Daniel just got another lead the other day, my partner, through a dear friend of his at a restaurant. He said, oh, geez, I've known this guy a year and just found out his sister is an MD and part of a very prominent group. I can get you in touch with her. We said, great, thank you very much. And that's not even going to cost us anything. That was just a friendly lead. We're in the negotiation phase of our second client, which is a much larger group than our first client. There's going to be 5 providers. The revenue we'll make and what we'll stand to profit personally from this endeavor is just from this one group is amazing. So with our first client, they'll be up and running actually about the second week of January. They'll go live after implementation. Implementation has actually been a breeze compared to what I thought it was going to be, by the way. A lot of work, but nothing you can't do if you have your eyeballs open during training. And again, reference the materials. And also, this is critical, calling ABS, emailing ABS, using all of the continued support. There's an enormous tree of support for every phase of the sales process. But with the second client, they've agreed to come on board, and now we're just essentially negotiating. So it's again a really sharp group. They are really going to be a feather in the cap, I should say. ABS gives you the tools to have your business up and running, and then there's basically 2 transactions you'll ever make with a client, with a healthcare provider or practice. And that is, one, you'll get a setup fee based on the number of providers. How much you can charge per provider is covered in training. And then second is you will be paid by the practice every month on an agreed upon date based upon the contract you construct with them of a certain percentage of the revenue that you've collected for them. And that's the real prize, is getting the monthly revenue.
In general, Justin, what is the range of percentage of the revenue run for most people?
Industry-wide, it's anywhere from 4 to 9%. I've seen people charge as much as 10%, but that's extremely high. Most doctors wouldn't like that. But again, it depends on what you negotiate in the proposal. But I would say anywhere from 5 to 7% is what you're going to be looking at charging. So if you factor in roughly how much money per month you're capturing for the physician in the practice, multiply that by, say, 5 or 6 or 7%, or 5.5% or 6.5%. That's what you're going to be making monthly, and it's a significant income.
Yeah. So if the doctor is billing out $100,000 a month, but he's only collecting, let's say, at this point, $70,000, and you can get that up to, say, even $90,000. You're going to make 6-7% of $90,000. So just do the math there, and you'll see it can be very profitable with just a handful of clients.
Right. Yeah. Just a handful. Absolutely.
If you get that group that has the 5 doctors in there, I don't know what they're doing. Do you have any kind of feel for their volume?
Yeah, revenue-wise, they're billing out around $4 million a year, but they're not capturing all of that. So it's a very important distinction. Is you might encounter a new prospect in a practice, and in your practice analysis and review, in the consultation phase of the sales process, you might go, "Wow, I might get 5% of $4 million." You need to. What they charge is not important. What they're collecting is. They might be billing out to insurance between the 5 physicians $4 million a year. They might only be capturing 1.5 or 2. And with our system, hopefully we're going to get that up to actually what they're charging. We might be able to say, hey, we're going to get you 3.8 million. So 3.8 million times, let's just say 5% for easy math, is going to be nearly $200,000 a year.
Yeah, didn't you say when we were talking earlier, Justin, offline, something about was it your first client that had like a real high rejection rate? What was it, the 60% or something?
Their rejection rate was actually 66%, and I thought it was a mistake, and I said, no, you mean that's your collection rate. You mean your rejection rate's 34%. And they said, no, we know exactly what we mean. Our rejection rate is actually 66%.
That is
which was appalling. And
that's horrible.
Yeah.
But good news for you, huh?
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Glenn is asking about suggested compensation arrangements for employees. You don't actually have employees yet at this point, right, Justin? Why don't you give him a feel for what you might pay a sales rep, for example?
Sure. You're going to pay the sales rep like how we do it right now. We're not large enough to be able to afford, some kind of monthly stipend or salary plus commission and benefits. That's where we're heading. That's where we'd like to be next year at some point. The sooner the better. But right now we just do it on a contracted basis and say, look, we'll pay you a flat rate percentage. I mean, that might be 5% for you. It could be 10%, 15%. It depends on what seems attractive to the sales rep. One person might say, no, I need 20%, or I'm not going to, help you. And somebody else might think 10% is great. So that's a case-by-case basis with your own business.
Yeah.
And whoever you have. And then, you could say, I might pay you a flat rate of the setup fee, and then you're done. You might make $1,000, or I could pay you a percentage of what we make every month for 3 months, a year. I mean, that's entirely up to you. It just depends on, what you want to negotiate. So it just depends on the quality of person. Obviously, the higher quality person you're looking at that can bring you solid business and create good relationships for your new company, the more you're going to be willing to pay them. So, but again, that's an individual choice.
Now, Richard wants to know, Justin, about those startup fees that you charge. Can you give people a feel for what those fees are and how much of that you get to keep and how much ABS gets?
ABS gets none of it. You could charge anywhere from $5,000 per provider to maybe $10,000 per provider. And although in the beginning that's going to be important, you want to be careful that you don't make it so high that it becomes an obstacle to getting their business. Because again, those 2 transactions that you'll do is, you get a setup fee from the practice, but then it's the monthly revenue that you're after for the services. You don't want to scare them away from coming on board so that you don't get that monthly revenue. That's where your real income for your business is made.
Right. And just like everything in life, those setup fees are negotiable. You throw them out there. If they react to them, then you work that out. And sometimes, we've had people be pretty creative and say, well, look, it's $8,000 setup fee for you and the 3 other doctors, but here's what we can do. We can get a third of that down, and then once we get it implemented, you get the other third, and then once we've got billing going, you pay the other third. Let them pay it out, and they're fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, again, it comes down to, no 2 practices are the same. They might be the exact same number of providers and the exact same specialty, and they might be across the hall from each other. But, no 2 people in the world are exactly the same. So it's just going to be a case-by-case basis of what you want to negotiate. And obviously, you want it to be a win-win. And there's a lot of freedom in that, which I think is great, because once they're on board, again, getting into this industry with your first client is not a small task. But once you're in and you've built a business and you have a reputation, the referrals start coming. It's absolutely worth it, beyond anything I can describe. Yeah,
there's not many businesses that the doctors all know one another, and they go to golf and church and synagogue, and they're in the country club together, and they go tennis together, and so they know one another. And yes, they're going to share the good news that, hey, I had a 30-40% rejection rate, now it's down to 2%. They're going to share that with other doctors, and that's where the business just grows organically, I call it.
Yeah, that's well said. You want it to grow organically. And remember, many licensees, as we learned, are going to try and launch their businesses or successfully launch their businesses while maintaining a full-time job, or maybe the wife had a full-time job and the husband was working part-time. Any combination, it doesn't matter. But then again, it's like a tidal wave coming in with business, and again, every single one's different. I think what's also more important than whether or not you feel comfortable with doing sales is what's your motivation. I know mine and my partner's motivation was pretty clear. Not only did we want to have a profitable business that was a good return on our investment with ABS, which it is, I spent a lifetime, just due to family health issues with my father and other unfortunate things, around healthcare and hospitals and doctors my whole life since I was 9 years old. And I see how poorly some of the best physicians that I've ever met, they're angels on earth, they are amazing, they would ply their trade for free if they could, how poorly their practices are run. And ultimately the patient suffers for that. So, aside from, this is a great financial opportunity to have your own business and live a comfortable life if you work hard enough at it, I like knowing that we're not just making doctors more money, we're making their office environment more pleasant, we're making them more efficient, and ultimately getting less money from the patient, because in the age of Obamacare and insurance or no insurance, it's a really difficult environment. And if we can do that small part that helps impact a patient experience, I can feel pretty good about that. You're going to feel pretty great after training. You're going to feel like you're ready to conquer the world just by the materials that you have, physically, your binders and the books and all the documents. And you'll study it for quite some time as you develop the business. But use it. Use the ABS support. There's nothing they don't support. They're waiting for us to call and say, here's something I didn't ask in training. Here's something training didn't cover. As great as the training is, it cannot cover everything. It's not possible in 5 days, but it covers the lion's share. So anytime we've needed help, ABS has always been there. It's been really wonderful, and I encourage anybody to lean on it heavily because that's why they're there. They want success for all of us, and they back it up.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you being on here. I'm just going to answer some more questions here. Some folks have some questions about the opportunity, so I'll take time to answer those questions.
Yeah, I'll bow out. It was great seeing you again, Patrick. I'll speak to you soon.